On episode 471 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Abby Langer and discuss her book, Good Food, Bad Diet: The Habits You Need to Ditch Diet Culture, Lose Weight, and Fix Your Relationship with Food Forever. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/471. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. On today's episode, we're going to dive deep into relationship with food and how it affects your weight loss. There's a ton of value in these concepts, but there's often a wide gap between knowing what you need to do and getting it done. Many people turn to a coach to help them bridge that gap. I'm looking for 5 more people to join me on a pre-launch of my yet-to-be-named 12-week weight loss program. If you have 15 or more pounds to lose, this program is designed just for you. Not only am I offering it at a fraction of what the investment will be when I go live with the final program, it comes with a full money-back guarantee. This is not a cookie-cutter program or a large group challenge. This is a small group, customized for you personal training program that will give you the support you need to drop the weight quickly and safely. I will help you develop the mindset and a sustainable lifestyle that will make weight loss easier. You can lose the weight and get more fit, but only by taking action. Go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/action. This link will take you to my scheduler where you can book a quick call to see if this program can get you the results you need. Go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/action and let's bridge the gap between knowing and doing. Hello, Raz. How you doing?
Hey, Al. Good. How are you today, Alan?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I think we're turning a corner here in Bocas, and they're starting to, put some things out there that they're willing to do what they call an asynchronous opening to the country.
Oh boy.
Which means that they're going to have different rules for different parts of the country, which is good and bad. I feel bad for the parts that are going to stay more, encumbered and more closed. But it looks like Bocas has done really well with keeping the virus tamed on the islands. So they've said things can open. And to my knowledge, I should be able to open the gym. So when this goes live, it's February 1st. Hopefully, the health department will let me open. I've expanded the gym. I've brought in new equipment. I've set up some things that'll spread everything out. I'll have some protocols. I'll have tons of cleaning materials. I'll have a thermometer. I'll have all this stuff. So we should be able to convince them that it's the right time for us to open the gym.
Wonderful. That would be so exciting. I'm sure all your clients will be very excited to get back to the gym.
I get asked every single day. Tammy gets asked several times a day. So yes, it's a it's a thing. Yes, people do want the gym
Sweet.
open on the island. So I'm working towards that end, and it's good. I feel really good about what we've done here at the gym to get it ready. There's a lot of work went into it, a lot of money. But
Hmm.
sometimes when things are tough, you just invest. You just invest
That's
in
right.
yourself. You invest in the things that are important to you. It's not necessarily a time to hang back and just let things ride. Sometimes you have to go ahead and take the bull by the horns and charge on in and get this done.
Absolutely. That's exciting.
How are things up there in the great white north?
Snowy. Yeah, we've got some snow. It's beautiful up here. But like you just said, a lot of us up here are runners and we're investing in ourselves, getting ready for some spring runs. Hopefully, races will come back again. If not, I'm sure they'll be virtual. I myself actually am training for a 50 miler. It's in the summer, so it's still kind of hard to tell whether it's going to go or not. So, not only am I ramping up my miles, I'm doing all the other things I need to do to be strong and healthy when I get ready for this race. So my runner's workout, which your listeners can find on my website, strong-souls.com, is a great body weight workout. I do it 2 or 3 times a week, and I am already feeling pretty good, pretty strong. So pretty excited for what this year holds.
Well, good. You can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/471, and I'll be sure to have that link there, links to the books we're going to talk about today, links to everything. So if we ever talk about a link, you can always go to the show notes, and this is episode 471. So good. That's cool. That's great to hear, Rachel.
Yes.
I'm excited too, because I know, for when most people are running, they want to run. Runners run.
Yes.
And lifters lift. And there really is a place for us to do a little bit of both so that we're balancing out our training and not overtraining and not, and just making ourselves more resilient.
Absolutely. It's good to be well balanced, cross trained, do all the different things that keep your body as a whole in good shape.
Yeah. Well, we got a review from a listener. We get one every once in a while. So if you want to go leave us a rating and review on wherever you listen to this podcast, that would just be awesome. But he said we were too touchy-feely. No one's ever said that about me before, but which I think is actually good. That was part of the reason why I brought you on the show, was to kind of personalize this a little bit more. And so I think that's a success.
Oh, well, that was nice. Okay.
No, he didn't like that we were touchy-feely, but that's fine. We are who we are. And like I said, I wanted to get some more balance on the show. So Rachel, it looks like you've helped me meet that objective. So thank you for that.
Good. Well, thanks for letting me chat with you about all this stuff. I love this. This is great.
All right. Well, our guest today is a registered nutritionist. So let's go ahead and have a conversation with Abby Langer. Our guest today is a registered dietitian. Her career has spanned over 20 years in various settings, from hospitals to private practice. She has made it her mission to debunk fad diets and nutrition myths and promote how to live your best life without dieting, both in her practice and in her writing. She has written for Self, Men's Health, and Women's Health, and has been featured as an expert in the New York Times, The Cut, and CBC Radio. With no further ado, here is Abby Langer. Abby, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
So today we're going to talk about your book, Good Food, Bad Diet, The Habits You Need to Ditch Diet Culture, Lose Weight, and Fix Your Relationship with Food Forever. I really like that title, and I really like kind of the tone of the whole book, because I think so many of us, we see the stuff that's going on Instagram or Facebook. I'm not even on Instagram, and it's because everyone that does what I do on Instagram is really kind of glorifying a look, a thinness, a physique that's really probably not attainable by 90% of the human beings walking this earth. And many of them started that way, and they've been that way their whole lives. And now they're in their 40s and 50s and look great. And that's good for them. I'm very happy for them. But it creates a culture that I think is really dangerous. And, in the book, you call it diet culture.
That's right.
Can we talk a little bit about that and why this is such an insidious problem?
It's funny that you are saying that, because I was just actually on my Facebook with my daughter, who's 10. And as I was scrolling, there were these ads for yoga clothes, two separate companies actually. And the women in them were so thin. And being thin is not a bad thing, but they only have thin models on these ads. There's no women in larger bodies or, even average size bodies, as I would say. It's just these extreme, like reed thin women advertising these yoga clothes. And I said to my daughter, this is so harmful, because it shows little kids that there's only one standard of beauty. And certainly diet culture follows along the same lines. Diet culture is something that it's a philosophy, if you will, in our society that says thin is best, fat is the worst thing that you can be, and you should be thin at any cost, no matter what. Because if you are thin, you'll have a great life. Your life will be transformed, which we all know is not true.
Well, yeah, it's a hard sell. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I mean, I had Rosie Mercado on the show not long ago, and she's a plus size model. And even within the plus size modeling department, they have a line. They have a thinness, if you will, And so, she was looking at her career and she was also looking at her health. She had young children and she was just trying to figure things out. But even within that paradigm of the plus size model, which you would think in a general sense would be okay, we're going to let women experience and be themselves. And that was supposed to be the messaging behind that movement, if you will. And it just didn't happen that way.
No, it still has, like you said, it's line. I mean, plus size, what passes for plus size now is, I hate that word, plus size, anyways. Like, what does that even mean? But it's like size 14 or 16. It's average now,
Yeah.
And so it's just so awful. Like, why do we have to use these labels? Women and people in general come in all shapes and sizes. Why is that bad?
And, I think one of the reasons why we accept some of that is that we kind of build into ourselves these core beliefs. And you talk about negative core beliefs because we have a lot more negative core beliefs than we do positive. Even our most optimistic
Unfortunately.
people, I'm a fairly optimistic person, but every once in a while I catch one of these trolls, if you will, coming out and feeding my brain bad food or bad information. Um,
Right.
in the book, you went through 5 top negative core beliefs. Can you go through that, and then you have a process that in business we would call it a root cause analysis, where you just keep asking why. Can you walk us through that? Because there's 5 very
Sure.
important ones that I agree. I see them all the time with my clients, and I think them going through this process would be quite valuable.
So let's do the first one, which is thin equals lovable and thin equals attractive. So first of all, actually, before we get started, I want to talk about what a negative core belief is, because I think there might be some listeners who don't know what they are. So we all have core beliefs, whether they're negative or positive. These are beliefs that are most likely established in early childhood, and they basically govern every decision we make, including how we feel about ourselves and what we decide to eat and how many diets we want to go on, among other things. But they're basically how we see ourselves in the world. And so one of the first core beliefs that I talk about is thin equals lovable, thin equals attractive. In other words, people who have this negative core belief, because it is a negative, believe that unless they weigh a certain amount or they're at a certain weight, they're ugly or they're not worthy of love. And so I see this all the time. And, a lot of the time it comes from having a parent who dieted a lot around you when you're young. And, because you see, your mother or your father getting on the scale or berating themselves in the way they look. And a child, I mean, let's not fool ourselves. I'm a mom, and, I know children pretty well. They see everything. And even though they might not say anything, they're internalizing those messages, even the subconscious messages they get. So when a child sees their parent dieting, they tend to think, well, what if I'm bigger? What if I'm in a bigger body? Am I not good enough now? Am I worthy of love? So it's just, it's pernicious in that way, because you grow, you have that negative core belief when you're younger, but unless you bother to find it and expose it and work with it, people tend to grow up with that belief into adulthood. And I've seen people in their 50s and 60s who still have these negative core beliefs from childhood, and they don't make that connection, like, oh, that's actually from when I was really young. So when someone identifies their negative core belief, I always ask them to do a couple of things. So the first thing is asking themselves if the core belief is true. So is this really true? Like, where did you learn this from? And whose voice are you hearing? And is this a rational thought? Do you really believe that if you weigh 125 pounds, you're more worthy of love than you are at 175 pounds? Like, where did you learn that from? And I get them to ask themselves questions like the why. Ask yourself why until you're blue in the face. Why? Like, why do I believe this? Okay, well, why? And then after that happens, and they expose that negative core belief for what it is. Okay, maybe, I actually acquired this negative core belief like when I was young, and this is my mother's voice I'm hearing in my head every time I think that. Okay, let's flip this negative core belief into a positive. So, and this is the way you get rid of those negative core beliefs. Negative core beliefs are like trolls. They're like gremlins. They hate the light. I think gremlins hated the water. Did they hate the light too?
No, you don't get them wet. You don't get them wet. That's
okay.
But I think they did have aversion to bright lights. Yeah, they didn't like bright lights, and you don't get them wet.
Well, okay. Well, you know what? Negative core beliefs hate the light because it takes their power away. So we spend so much time as adults going on diets and doing everything we can to ignore these negative core beliefs because they're painful to expose. You can and I say several times in my book, you may need the help of a therapist to do this because it's tough. You can uncover some pretty tough situations or stuff, but it's important to do this work because if you've been covering them up with diets and just negative thoughts for your whole adult life, it impacts a lot. And it's unhealthy. So taking the core belief power away by exposing it, turning it around in your hands and really looking at it, where it came from, what it is, and how it's affecting you, and then switching it to a positive. So, for example, the core belief of I'm not worthy or I'm not attractive unless I'm thin, you might want to tell yourself or write down everybody is worthy of affection and love regardless of their weight. And it seems like intellectually we know that, right? Yeah. But emotionally, it's such a tough concept to grasp. And it takes a while because you've told yourself something different.
Well, yeah, with something like that, it to me, and again, this is easier said than done because we are dealing with emotions. We are dealing with some of our internal wiring. So I'm not going to say this is this easy, but from a conceptual perspective, I have to ask myself, would I feel that way about someone else? So as you kind of mentioned, like if I'm thinking, okay, well, I've put on a little bit of weight and I'm not attractive to people, nobody's going to love me. The question I'd ask is if I were with someone or interested in someone and they put on an extra 20 pounds, would I just decide they weren't worthy of love? And the answer is that's silly. Of course I wouldn't.
Of course not.
But to reverse that and say, well, that's how I expect other people to feel about me. Just kind of realize that kind of just took all the air out of that. It's like, no, that's not how people are. And if you're with or around someone that is, get that person out of your life. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's terrible. Yeah, and I get people to actually, in the process of turning that negative core belief into a positive, I get people to write down the proof that their negative core belief isn't true. And that is something that, they might write something like what you just said. I would never do that to somebody. It's the same as I talk about negative core beliefs, but I also talk about people's tape because your tape, it's basically the negative thoughts that you play in your head over and over and over again all day. And I always say to people, would you say these things to someone you love? Would you say them to your kids? I'm so fat. I'm not worthy. I have no willpower, which, by the way, is total BS. Like, willpower does not exist in terms of dieting. And I explain all of that in my book. But you would never say that stuff to someone. You'd never say, oh, yeah, Martha, you're so fat and ugly. I don't want to be your friend anymore. So why would you say it to yourself? And, like that, it's important to realize how you're treating yourself and to flip it around.
Yeah. So we've got the, thinness equals love, negative core belief. Yeah. What are the other four?
So the next one is food is love and food is safety. So when someone comes to me and feels like they have to eat at a certain time of day to make themselves feel better, or like they tend to binge eat certain comfort foods, I always ask them about, well, I always ask people about their childhood anyways, but a lot of the time, these people grew up in an unsafe situation, whether their parents were fighting or, something along those lines. And they were given food as a babysitter or given food to assuage their anxiety. And as adults, they still use food as a coping mechanism. And because food helps them feel safe. And you know what? And food helps them feel loved. Now, I'm the first one to tell you that you can show love through food. So this is not what I'm saying, because I'm going to have people saying, but food is love. Okay, fine. But it should never be your only tool in your coping toolbox, right?
Yeah.
And certainly food does not replace love, and it doesn't make you. So you have, and it's sort of like you have the power within you to deal with tough situations without using food. But this negative core belief makes you feel as though you don't.
Yeah, so it's easy enough to say, okay, this is not just exactly like, okay, there's a bad breakup and the girl goes and gets the Haagen-Dazs and sits and the bowl of ice cream, or the guy goes to the bar with his buddies and drinks a few
This
beers.
is like chronic overeating, because you don't want to face what is making you feel unsafe inside, and it's horrible. It's sad, but. And I always tell people, this is tough work. My book is not like, oh, here's what to eat and here's a grocery list and some meal plans and go, see you later. It's like, okay, I truly believe that there is no long-lasting, meaningful change in nutrition if you don't clean out your closet first. You've got to work out your stuff around food. And so many, pretty much all the books on the market don't do that. They're just like, okay, yeah, let's do a keto diet. But okay, why do you feel this way about your body? What about your relationship with food? Are you going to destroy it? Are you going to be part of the problem, or are you going to be part of the solution? This book is part of the solution. You're not going to continue to destroy your relationship with food and your body. You're going to fix those things forever by exposing these core beliefs, by looking at your tape, by dealing with all of your stuff around food in your body. And then in the second and third parts of the book, we're going to put all of the nutrition stuff into the works there. So, yeah.
Okay. So that's 2 down. We got 3 more to go.
Thin equals a better life. That's the third one. Listen, I see this. I review on my website all of the nutrition MLMs, the multi-level marketing, like Plexus and Arbonne and, like whatever, Isogenics, all of them are on my website at abbylangernutrition.com. And I'm brutal. But the one thing that I notice about all of these companies is that they promise a transformation. That once you follow their program and you lose weight, you're going to be a different person. But guess what? You're not. You're not going to be a different person. You're still going to have, the same boss who you hate and, whatever, all of the issues. You're just going to be a thinner person. And it's just, it's not realistic to believe that. So that's a negative core belief. And the other part of that core belief, number 3, is thin equals worthy. If you're fat, you're not worthy. You have to put yourself last, and it's you're not worthy of health. You're not worthy of happiness. I've seen this with clients. They come to me and they tell me they want to make changes to their diet, but they don't feel, they sabotage themselves. They just don't feel like they're worthy of doing it. They're not worth it. They're not worth the effort, because it's an effort, right? And we work on that because I end up telling them, you're worthy of good things. You deserve good things, no matter what your size is. Why does your size have to do with anything? But this is, it's a damaged self-worth. And a lot of the time, again, it comes from growing up in a house where you didn't feel valued, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You know?
you have to start this journey with self-love. If you don't
Well,
get to
you have to
that
learn
point,
self-love
yeah,
during this
you do.
journey,
You have to
right?
get in there. Yeah, but you have to get to that point, because anytime I found someone that wasn't, truly in love with themselves at some level, they came back and sabotaged. They self-sabotaged. All right, so we have two more of the negative core beliefs.
So number 4 is I can't be trusted and neither can my body. So this is sort of like the thing that the wellness culture and diet culture feeds off of is there is something wrong with you and we're going to fix it for you by putting you on a diet because you can't trust your body to tell you what it needs. And you can't trust yourself around certain foods. That is complete and utter nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And people who have been chronic dieters truly believe this. A lot of them do, not everybody, I guess. But, it also comes from sometimes kids grow up in a family where parents didn't let the kids self-regulate. They really tried to regulate everything. So kids, if they were hungry, they weren't allowed a second portion, or they had to finish everything on their plate, even though they weren't hungry. So they didn't grow up trusting their body to tell them what it wants. And this is a negative core belief that leads people to follow down the wellness culture and diet culture down the garden path and tell them what to eat and how to eat, and when it's just like not good for them.
Yeah, you see this, a lot, particularly with some of the bigger programs. I won't mention the names, but you have a weekly meeting and you weigh in, and it works well for a little while, and then it doesn't. And I'm talking to someone, and they've been in that program for 3 years, and I'm
They
like,
have lifers. They have
yeah,
lifers.
how is this going? And
I review that too.
how is this working for you? And they're like, oh, well, I'm about the same as when I started, and I'm like, oh, okay.
No, because your relationship with food and your body is worse, actually.
Yeah.
It's like get on the scale in front of everybody, although now it's a pandemic. And then the 5th core belief is I am my diet. And this I see far too often. This is when people say, talk constantly about good food and bad food and clean eating and all of that, which it's like the worst type of putting morality-based labels on food, because what ends up happening, and this is also very pernicious. Like people don't realize it's happening when it's happening, but they end up associating themselves with their diet. And it sounds intellectually like, whatever, like I don't do that. But emotionally, it happens where if you're constantly, eating food that you deem as bad food, then you're going to believe that you're a bad person.
Yeah, I had Dr. Alan Buchanan on, and we got to talking about tribalism. And
no, it's the worst.
But that's a lot of what's happening here is that someone will go on and say, okay, well, I eat vegetarian, or I eat carnivore, or I eat keto, or I eat paleo. And like you said, they get into the bad food, good food. And then once they start doing that, then they're in a tribe, and so there's a social cost to them. Like you'll have someone who is a vegan, and they'll get caught eating meat. And
like that girl who ate the fish, and then
and then it's like just try. Then so then when they try to cross culture lines, these tribal lines, it becomes this huge thing, because they've not only identified themselves with that, they basically put it out there. They're an evangelist. So they've gone beyond being tribal. They're a chief in the tribe. And so, if you're following that down and you're not really experiencing, life, you're letting food run your direction, letting the people.
And you're in an echo chamber too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I see this all the time. It's the diet war. So you're in an echo chamber of people just repeating the same incorrect facts to you. Most of the time they're incorrect about certain diets. But people are so lonely. We're so connected, but we're lonelier than ever. And research shows that. And people are looking for community. And so they find it online with these different diets. And it's like us against them. I've written about it and been interviewed about it several times, actually. And it's scary. It's like really upsetting. It's concerning that people really if they place all of their value into their diet. It's like your diet is you.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah. So let's go ahead now, and we've kind of put together the concept of get to know you. Get to know you. Start the process of healing. Start the process of self-love. Get past some of these negative core beliefs, or at least recognize that what the tape in your head. And we'll go with tape because I'm of the generation where we use tapes and not now MP3s, not MP3s or whatever's coming down the line. But people still want to know what to eat, how to eat, what not to eat, because again, everything we've been directed has been said, don't eat this, eat that, don't eat that.
It's either don't eat this and eat that, or eat whatever you want and listen to your body. But I've been a dietitian for 21 years, and I'm telling you, it's like there's this huge spectrum. One end of it is like intuitive eating, or like be very permissive, and the other end is be very restrictive. And I 100% believe that most people will do far better in the gray area between those two poles.
Yes.
And so my book is The Gray Area.
Right.
I give you some guidelines, but really teach you how to self-manage.
And I think that's what's so cool here is that you're I think a lot like me in that I call myself diet agnostic. Try something and see how it works for you. If it didn't work, it's not you. It's not your fault that it didn't work. It just wasn't the right way for you to eat. You weren't feeding your body the right way for your body to respond the right way. The relationship between carbs, protein, and fat. Obviously, we know they give us what our body needs for energy building, to put our body together with the fats and the proteins being most of that. Can you kind of go through the process of explaining the relationship between carbs and protein and fat and how we should view that as we're looking at building the way that we want to eat?
So what I recommend to everybody is to build their meal around a protein. So select the protein first, and then fill it in with plants and a little bit of carbohydrate. Most of us will do the reverse of that. We'll fill a plate with carbohydrate, like put a ton of rice on our plate, and then put a little bit of protein and maybe vegetable, maybe not. So my theory is that, first of all, we don't eat enough vegetables. And so we need to try to put them in at least 2 meals a day. But also, we tend to stuff all of our protein into the evening meal. And breakfast, we skip if you're doing intermittent fasting, but which is, fine if that works for you. But if we don't skip it, or if we don't skip it intentionally, we end up overeating carbs. Or we also, if we don't skip breakfast at all, we tend to eat a carb-heavy breakfast. So what happens is protein releases hormones that help us feel fuller for longer. And protein also, it digests slower, and it also burns more calories at rest because your body has to work harder. The thermic effect of food is what it's called, to break those amino acids down. So protein is something that really, and I know it's very popular right now to put protein into everything. And it's because protein is so valuable, because it does affect our satiety levels so much. And it also helps us to build and maintain muscle, especially as we age. So protein first, vegetables, and then a little bit of carbs.
Right. And I think it's funny. I had a comment on one of the blog posts today, one of the podcast posts. And he was like, we were talking. The podcast was about seasonal ketosis, and that's where you go into periods of ketosis for weight loss, and then you say, okay, I know Christmas is coming up, or Thanksgiving is coming up, or New Year's is coming up, and it's like, okay, I know I'm going to want some of the pie or some of the cake or some of this. I think the strategy you're proposing there as you kind of go through this is you can still think about those meals, you can still think about those opportunities, and still follow something like this, where you're saying, okay, I'm going to focus on the protein, and then again, vegetables,
Yeah.
and then the
It's just
carbs.
basically setting priorities, like prioritize the protein, number one, and
Yes.
then the vegetables. Yeah. But no food is off limits. Like, I really don't think there's any food I would ever say you shouldn't. There's no food that I would ever say you can't eat. Like, I mean, there's foods that are not very nourishing physically, but
Well,
my point in the book is also to nourish yourself physically and emotionally with
yeah,
what you eat.
I'm just going to throw out there though. The only thing I disagree with is trans fats. You even said this in the book. To
Oh,
stay away from
Sorry.
trans fats. Those are
Well, we
those.
all agree on that. Yeah.
Those are not food.
It's really not
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So
We
okay.
know that though. Like,
Yeah.
we 100% know it.
Yeah.
So,
And you're right. I think that's the people, we know these things, and it's not rocket science. It's food, and it's not as complex as people want to make it out to be.
people micromanage their diet, and it makes me crazy because it really food. I mean, yes, of course, there's people who eat to live. I do not. I live to eat. I love food, and I really, truly believe that there's no shame in finding pleasure in food, which, again, diet culture tells us is not okay.
Yeah.
But it's what food is community. Food is pleasure. Like, it's fine. You should love what you eat. You don't need to punish yourself by just like force feeding yourself or choking down stuff that you eat, like green juice or whatever that you are just someone told you it's healthy, so that's why you're doing it. Like, no.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that a lot of people will get into, because they're like, oh, I want to feel good, I want to get all the energy, I want to get all those carbs in there, get all that good stuff in there. They'll do smoothies, or they'll do juices, the green juice, the fruit juice, and 90% of the time, because that's when they have the time to actually do this, they do this for breakfast.
And then there's no protein in there.
Yeah. Let's talk about why that's not a good strategy, and how they should be looking at this a little bit differently. Because I think you hit on something really key there is protein. It's not happening. And even if it is, it's a scoop of this or a scoop of that, not necessarily.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, they'll make a smoothie out of fruits and vegetables and almond milk. And it's like, okay, there's no protein in that. You're going to be hungry an hour later. Not even. Or they'll use almond milk and then they'll put a scoop of whey powder in. Like, why don't you just use milk? It's, why are we overcomplicated? And whey powder, it's like so engineered. It's fine. It's the gold standard in protein powders, if you want to eat a protein powder, but there's really no reason to do that. You want to eat as foods in as close to their whole state as possible whenever possible. And of course, like, you're going to want to eat Oreos or, whatever, Doritos every once in a while. Like, that's fine too. But if the bulk of your diet should be whole or minimally processed foods wherever possible, even if it means that you're buying canned vegetables, you're buying frozen fruits. Like, we have to be inclusive of everybody, who not necessarily just the people who can afford these things.
Now, I'll have to full admission here. I did at one point in my journey to try to lose weight, I did a fruit juice cleanse. It was a very expensive one. You buy these fruit juices for the 3 days, and basically it's a juice fast. And I think they said it was like 600 calories a day. And some of them were lemon juices, and some of them were a little bit more. One of them was cashew milk, so there was a little bit of fat in there, a little bit of protein, but not much. And
not even close.
I was ready to chew my arm off by the second day.
And that's what happens. When you finish, you just overeat. It's so silly. Like, there's no physiological reason why you need to detox or cleanse at all. Like, your lungs, your kidneys, your liver, they do the work for you. Yeah. And really, that's wellness culture at its very finest.
It was. And the only thing I can say is, was it successful? Yes, if you only looked at the scale. because I did weigh about 5 pounds less after that weekend was
But how
over.
long did it take you to gain
Well,
it back?
until I ate something, anything,
Right.
because all that was stuff that was in my digestive tract that was no longer there.
Right. Yeah.
'Cause
And muscle.
yeah,
And the muscle
and
that you
probably,
build
and
up.
maybe even a little bit of muscle mass. It was just
Yeah.
3 days. I didn't do it for very long, but it was just one of those things to say, okay, I'm going to try this and see what it does. And
It's so
it was
uncomfortable.
an interesting experience because, again, yeah, it would make someone feel good when they saw that the scale went down after 3 days of doing this. But I knew I hadn't lost any fat, and I knew that it was just basically, yeah, I was starving all weekend, and it was punishment. I literally look back at it and say that was self-punishing. That was diet
For
culture
what?
at its best, right? And it
Yeah.
really didn't do me much good at all. And you're right, I
Yeah.
was starving the whole time.
These
Um,
juice companies are just making a bundle on people. It makes me so upset because, they prey on vulnerable people who want a solution, but this isn't a solution.
Well, the good thing is, because you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of those folks that's going to easily fall for stuff like that. You're educating yourself and trying to understand more
Yeah.
about nutrition, more about fitness, more about health in general. And so when those companies tell you, yeah, you can lose 5 pounds in a weekend, true statement. You will likely lose that weight, but it's not fat. It's not the weight you want to lose. It's as soon
It's
as
just going to come back after
as
you
soon
have
as
a
you
glass
eat
of water.
something, yeah, as soon as you start eating after the second day,
Yeah.
I gained that every single
Oh,
ounce of it
so
back.
frustrated.
And it was frustrating to a point, but it was educational because I was like, okay,
Yeah.
now I know this doesn't work for me. And so every time if you look back at it and say, okay, I've done this thing, I've done the diet yo-yos over and over and over and over, and I always end up in the same place or worse off. It's not you, it's the diet. The diet is bad, but you learned something. So don't take those bad experiences as failure. Don't think of this as a failure,
No.
because in a general sense, you learned something even from that
My dad
failure.
used to say, there's no failure. There are no mistakes in life because you learn from everything. And he
Yes.
was right, of course.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, in the book, you use this term, and I love this term. It's called high value eating.
Yeah.
I love that. I actually do. Now,
Do you?
there's
Good.
10 tenets to that. Could you go through those 10 tenets really quickly?
Yes. So the first one is be a pencil, not an eraser. And this is like my number one recommendation. It's since forever, because we're so inundated with do not eat this and do not eat that. And you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that in terms of diet. And I believe that people respond so much better to positive changes rather than negative ones. And because we are taking so much out of our diet unnecessarily, the usual suspects are gluten, wheat, and dairy. So many people tolerate those, and like some nutrition guru tells them to take them out, so they do, and they don't enjoy. People can't enjoy their favorite foods. I add these things back to people's diets, and I want readers to know that unless there is some compelling reason for them to have these out of their diet, that they can add them back. So add foods back into your diet. Then you won't feel deprived or punished. The second one is eat whole or minimally processed foods as much as possible. And we did go through that. The third one, and keep in mind that this high value eating is the last part of my book. And this is where people get to put all of the stuff they learn about nutrition into practice. So this is the last part. Number 3 is understand your lifestyle. How many times have I seen someone building their life around their way of eating instead of the opposite way? Your way of eating, I say diet, but I don't mean diet in a restrictive way. I mean it in, diet is what you eat. Your diet should fit your lifestyle, not the other way around. Number 4 is make peace with your preferences. Again, why are you choking down that green juice if you hate it? There are so many things to eat and drink on this earth, that, if you don't like something, don't eat it. And so many people say, well, I have to eat broccoli. I hate it, but I just, it's healthy. Okay. There are so many vegetables. Why are you punishing yourself? So make peace with your preferences. Replace the replaceable. So as you go through the grocery store, do not just shop out of habit. If you are habitually buying sugar sweetened beverages or 3 different packs of cookies. Take those out of the cart and buy them only when you really, really want them. So in other words, shop mindfully. And I have a lot of people saying, well, I buy them for my kids. And then they obviously envy. My husband loves it. But no, everyone in your household, the habits should be tweaked. Like, it's not just about you. It's about the support that you get from everyone else as well. Number 6 is be intentional and quiet that diet voice. So when you reach for something and you're telling, so a little voice inside you says, oh, it's bad, you need to quiet that voice and eat in a consistent way, sustainable way. You want to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And we do go through hunger and fullness cues in my book and the difference between fullness and satisfaction, because they're 2 different things. The 7th tenet is all about balance. So I did mention Oreos and Doritos earlier. Those might not be your vices, but everything is balance. And I know, like, one word that dietitians love to use, which I can't stand, is moderation. It's because it's so subjective. But again, like, there are going to be days where you eat a lot of ultra processed food and you need to just move on. It's fine. Nothing bad's going to happen, I promise. Number 8 is be flexible. I'm not a rigid sort of person. Won't give you meal plans or anything. You need to learn how to put things into practice, but be flexible. If you're on vacation, are you really going to want to follow some sort of diet? Like, maybe you won't have vegetables twice a day, but it's like, again, you have to be flexible. If sometimes you go to someone's house and they're serving something that you might think, oh, it's so high in fat. Oh, I don't want to eat macaroni and cheese. Just eat it. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Open your mind and just take a breath. Number 9 is eat for you, not for everybody else. These changes that you're making are for you. These tweaks to your diet are for you, because when you make changes or to your diet for somebody else, or you eat something because somebody else wants you to, it's not a happy situation, and it's not productive, And then number 10 is eat according to your hunger, not the clock. So a lot of us will be like, oh, it's noon and I'm not hungry, but I guess I should eat. I don't think so. Unless you have to, because you have a fixed schedule. Many of us don't right now because it's a pandemic, but it's, you really want to become in tune with your hunger and fullness cues. And one way to do that is to really think whether you're hungry before you eat. It's a basic thing. But because if you're a chronic dieter, you may feel like you don't have those cues anymore. But I teach you how to get them back in my book.
Great. Abby, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
I think the first is to understand that wellness is not only physical, but it's emotional. I think too often we shove our emotional wellness to the back burner because we only want to focus on how much weight we can lose or how we look. And so we put that physical wellness first. But wellness it's not only what you eat and what you do, it's also how you feel and how you think about food and eating in your body. The other 2 are, enjoy food. Listen, you got to grab life by the what and give it a swing, because we're here for a very short time. And so don't spend time punishing yourself to be someone you're not. And along the same vein, number 3, don't set unrealistic goals for yourself. I see that far too much. And you're chasing a unicorn, man. Like, be the best you can be for yourself and stop comparing yourself to others.
Now, Abby, if someone wanted to learn more about you, learn more about the book, Good Food, Bad Diet, where would you like for me to send them?
So you can go to my website at abbylangernutrition.com, my Facebook at Abby Langer Nutrition. And I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at Langer Nutrition.
You can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/471, and I'll be sure to have the links there. Abby, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
You're so welcome. It was a joy to be here.
Welcome back, Raz.
Hey, Ellen. Another great interview. A lot of stuff to unpack here.
Yeah, one of the cool things with my job is that I get to talk to people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Abby happens to be from Canada, so from a nutrition perspective, their standards are different than the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and so some of the things that she's doing and talking about are something you're going to hear there. It's not built on what we have as a U.S. standard. It's a lot less political. There's a lot less lobbying involved. And so, in a sense, she has an advantage over dietitians that you might meet from the United States. And so that's why I really like that cross-pollination of different places in the world. So you can just hear what's going on, what the opinions are outside of the dogma of the United States.
Yeah, that is actually particularly fascinating what other countries think about common dietary habits for that area. So different from what we do here in the States.
Yeah. And then the other side of it is, having this conversation recently with someone is that, most of the problems that we have when it comes to weight loss and weight gain and all that, it's in our head. It's mental. We've put up these mental barriers, limiting beliefs that are holding us back. And so, when you're talking to a dietitian and the very first thing that she puts in place is how important mindset is,
Mm-hmm.
you have to pay attention to that, because that you have a personal trainer and you have a dietitian on the phone saying it's not how much you move, it's not necessarily even the foods you put in your mouth, it's most of it starting in your head.
Isn't that something? The attitudes that we have towards food, and they can be so strong without us even knowing it, really.
Yeah. And that's why it's easy to go off kilter, and it's easy to have addiction problems, or just be looking at food as something other than nourishment to an extreme, to a point where it's actually a problem. A lot of people, though, it's like she used the breakup. I think that's actually probably a good one, because that's one of those emotional things I think most of us have gone through. And yeah, so you're going through a breakup, and it's Valentine's, and candy went on sale on the 15th,
Yeah.
and now you're having a Haagen-Dazs and Valentine candy weekend. And all that is just comfort. You're seeking comfort in your food, and that's not a healthy approach. Now,
Right.
it's not to say food shouldn't be a part of it, because a healthy approach would be to call up someone that loves and cares about you, that you trust their judgment, and to have dinner with them.
Mm-hmm.
Have a reasonable, good dinner, dine, talk. Get it out. That's a healthy approach to food, being comfortable and being a part of a solution that's healthy, not a weekend of Haagen-Dazs.
Right. Well, you just touched on it. We have an emotional situation like a breakup, or maybe we lost our job, or something tragic in our lives. And the more often we just turn straight to food, the worse it's going to get. Where in your example, you take your best friend out for dinner and chat through the stress, then you'll deal with that problem a lot more healthier in that one moment. And then it just becomes one night of terrible eating instead of a repeating process. And it becomes a bad habit over time. If you're constantly reaching for food, then you're not dealing with the problems that you're facing.
Yeah. So having some tiramisu with a good friend over after dinner is going to be a lot better than binging on ice cream over a weekend by yourself, watching, what is it, the Hallmark Channel or Lifetime?
Sure.
I don't know, whatever's on now. I know what was there at one time. But anyway, but and then the other thing I get caught in because of my accounting background, or maybe it's just how I'm wired, but when I see numbers,
Mhm.
I'm gonna bounce on that one right away. It's a list. I love lists.
Yes.
And so she had the tenets of health, right?
Mhm.
That's what it's called. Okay, yeah,
10 tenets of high value eating.
high value eating. That's it. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
love the high value eating.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big part of it. So, what was one of your favorites?
Let's see. I think be flexible is one of them. I think being flexible with what you choose to eat is important because life happens. Like she had said, having birthday cake at a birthday celebration is not a terrible situation. But having birthday cake every single day becomes a problem. But, we go on vacations, we have holidays, we have celebrations. Be flexible as best you can and then get back to healthier eating the next meal, the very next meal.
Yeah, the way I like to think about that is that's a detour,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
like I said in the book, the wellness roadmap. If you're driving down the road and you see a sign for the world's largest wooden carved beaver, and you want to see that, that's great.
Hmm.
Plan the pullover and make it the most valuable trip it can be. So there's a gas station, you're going to fuel up, you're going to get, everybody's going to go to the bathroom, you're going to go see the Weber, take the picture and the selfie, and then you're going to get back in the car and get back on the road.
That's
But
right.
if you pull off on that detour, and then after you get off the exit, you see a sign for the white alligators a mile down the road. And now your detour is a longer, unplanned detour that's, not adding value to your life. It's not high value.
Hmm.
I mean, granted, you might really enjoy seeing the albino alligators. Don't get me wrong; they're cool to look at. Their little pink eyes, and yeah, they're cool. But
Yes.
is that detour worth it? And
Right.
the way I like to put that in real terms with us is, okay, let's say you've decided you're going to eat low carb, and you've been doing this for a few months, and your significant other tells you, hey, we're going on a business trip for this conference, and it's in Hawaii, and we're going to go. I get to take you, and we're going to go to Hawaii for a week, paid in full.
Woo. Wouldn't that be
Okay,
nice?
you're going to eat the pineapple. You're
Hmm.
going to drink the mai tais. you know you just are. You're going to
Hmm.
enjoy a luau. You're going to have the Hawaiian bread. You're going to eat the macadamia, chocolate covered macadamias. You're going to do those things.
Hmm.
That's a good detour. That's a part of the happiness mix of making,
True.
doing for yourself things that make you happy, not just looking at food as this restrictive, horrible thing you've got to keep yourself on and punishing
Hmm.
yourself. So when you find the detours that are worth it, you take the detours.
Hmm. That sounds great.
We had Dr. Lou and Dr. Rob on, and in their book, I guess they gave the more technical term. I call it detours. They call it tactical indulgences.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yes. I did. Yeah, I remember that. I like that term.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, just if you're going to take a detour, understand why you're doing it. That's the
Sure.
core of it. And then for the rest of the time, and this is the tenet that I like the most, was whole food.
Hmm.
Okay. We were designed to eat things that were living. They're not living while we eat them, except some things are, I guess. But for the most part, we were designed to eat things that were alive. And we're taking the essence of that living thing into ourselves for sustenance. Okay. I've never seen a Twinkie tree, you
No,
know,
have not seen one.
never seen a Twinkie. I've seen an apple tree. So will I occasionally indulge in an apple? Absolutely. It's a living thing. Even though maybe I'm not high on the fruit,
Hmm.
I'll have a peach. And sometimes, yes, I'll eat the mango or the pineapple, but that's still whole food. And
Hmm.
so, you manage your diet the way you want to manage your diet. You eat the things you want to eat. But in the end, recognize that the more you're eating whole food, the healthier
Hmm.
you're going to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another one of her tenets was be the pencil, not the eraser. And she meant instead of focusing on what you can't eat, erasing things out of your diet, focus on what you can eat. So pencil those things in. And I like that a lot because after a while, you'll realize that you feel better when you are adding in more vegetables or more fruits or more whole foods than and taking out some of that processed junk. And after a while, you won't crave that's the junk foods anymore. I like that one too.
Yeah, my wife used to hate Brussels sprouts until she had them prepared a certain way,
Mhm.
and now she craves them like I do.
Oh,
So she had her Brussels sprouts. She likes her Brussels sprouts now. So be willing to try things because your taste
yeah,
buds do change over time, and so something that you
absolutely.
just I used to hate mustard. I used to hate cream cheese. I don't anymore. I love those things. But just give something a try, particularly if you know that
Absolutely.
it's got what you need. If you know it's got the vitamin C, if you know it's got the minerals that you need, give it
Mhm.
a shot. Try it prepared a different way. Okra. If you let it get all slimy, I hate it. But if you make it crispy, I love it.
Mhm.
It's just so
Yeah.
it's just one of those things as you go. Okra's especially like okra in a gumbo. Oh,
Mm.
yeah. But
Yum.
anyway, it's real food, and be willing to try something else. Yeah, that's absolutely pencil it in. I like that.
Mhm.
And then the only other thing I would put out there is that if food is stressing you out,
Mhm.
okay, if you're like constantly stressed out, not knowing what you should be eating, or stressed out that eating this is going to cause a problem,
Mhm.
you're doing it wrong.
Sure.
Food should not be stressful.
Mhm.
That's we go back to that mindset thing. If your choices for food are really causing you some grief and concern, if it's a constant conversation point of, are you going to eat that? Am I going to eat that? What are we going to you gotta work on that relationship. You
Absolutely.
know,
She
it's
had mentioned that we are not what our diet is. We are not defined by our diet. And if you obsess too much about it, then it's taking away from your life instead of giving to it and
yeah,
nourishing it.
yeah, and that's why we'll throw out some things. We'll say you should eat whole foods, but what happens? Like you said, you go over to someone, it's their birthday, and they have some birthday cake.
Hmm.
You know, have a taste of cake.
Hmm.
You know, not a half a pound of cake, but
Right?
have a little cake. Enjoy
Yeah.
yourself. If someone goes somewhere and, like you said, it's a friend. Maybe it's your friend that's really stressed out, and she wants to order the tiramisu and share it with you. You're going to tell her no because you're on a
Right.
diet? No, you're not. You're going to have tiramisu with your friend, and you're going to comfort her just as
Hmm.
you would hope that later on she's going to do for you.
That's right.
Um, and so she's not spending the weekend with the buckets of ice cream. Uh, you know,
Perfect. Hmm.
so the big thing, like I said, the whole big takeaway of all this is you've got to build a good relationship with food if you want to maintain a healthy weight.
That's right.
That's what they do. As we talked to Dr. Taub, I mean, not doctor, he should be a doctor, but Gary Taubes, a while back, um, you know, our body's going to listen to what we feed it.
Hmm.
We put food in our body, it's signaling, and then the hormones are signaling, and then our body's doing what it does.
Hmm.
And if we're signaling to our body that we should be eating more because we're not getting the nutrition we need and our relationship with food is bad, the cortisol is higher. The cortisol causes the spike in insulin. And so you end up with this whole cascade of problems
Hmm.
that didn't start with the food. It started
Yeah.
in your head. It started
Good
with your
point.
hormones. And so relax, take a deep breath, and enjoy your food. That's in the end, that's the difference, the fundamental difference for people that, want to lose weight and those that don't have to lose weight
Hmm.
is they just have a better relationship with food overall.
I think that's a perfect place to start to get to know your body a little better and to your understand your food choices a little better.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Rachel, I guess with that, I'll let you go and we'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye.
Thanks.
Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet doctors Mike Fedwa and Mike Esco and discuss their app, Made Health. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.